Welcome to Sacred Cow Shipyards, where no ship is safe from being called a cow. I normally try to avoid talking about topics from the same universe in two shows back to back, but something I bounced off briefly in the last episode got stuck in my processors, and well, this is my show after all, so I guess you're along for the ride. This episode will certainly say things that will upset you, and that's kind of the point, so hold on or something, I don't know. Anyways, to get to the point as fast as I can, the longer I think about it, the more the Prime Directive stands as a prime example of just how monstrous the Starfleet / United Federation of Planets / whatever the hell else hegemony really is. And for those of y'all who don't know, the shortest form of the Prime Directive is: the Prime Directive prohibits Starfleet personnel and spacecraft from interfering in the normal development of any society, and mandates that any Starfleet vessel or crew member is expendable to prevent violation of this rule. Wow, you're expendable. Well, hold on. Because, honestly, aside from the expendability, that actually makes a certain degree of sense. But let's take a step back for just a second. The only reason that the United Federation of Planets is as peaceful as it is because the member species have access to basically limitless sources of energy and have the capacities to transform that energy directly into matter in basically any configuration you would want. In other words, replicators. Yes, replicators are limited by size and volume and so on and so forth, but still, replicators allow whatever member species of the United Federation of Planets to produce whatever the hell they want. It's the whole point of replicators. And this is basically where I will start upsetting a lot of people. Because no, Star Trek is not socialistic, as the tankies like to claim. It is entirely post-scarcity. And I know that's a term that's complicated for you humies right now, but post-scarcity basically means that they have so much energy and they can translate that energy into matter that they don't know what to do with that energy. So whatever matter you need made, they can make it. People in the Star Trek universe have no need to work because there are literally limitless, in the strictest sense of that word, resources available, barring a few certain specific things that can't actually be replicated. And Starfleet used EMHs to mine those things that couldn't be replicated. So let's not go ahead and go into the details of Starfleet's bad history of slavery. No. Instead, some people still choose to work. And notably, Starfleet is the most common form of quote-unquote work that you're familiar with, because, that's how the shows kind of got made. And then there's also making, epic jambalaya, because, if you can make good food, you should have your own, restaurant for that, even in a world of replicators, because, replicators can't replicate good food. Let's be honest here. And so, yes, if you can cook good food, you are doing it just because you enjoy it, as opposed to having to do it because you need to stay alive. But that is the difference between Star Trek and reality, is that Star Trek exists in a post-scarcity environment. And let's explore what that means. Because yes, humanity has the pleasure in the Star Trek story to experience an heretofore unknown period of peace and prosperity, simply because the most common cause of conflicts, otherwise known as resources, simply no longer existed. Resources can just be produced by way of replicators. And why would you fight over that? I guess you could fight over the access to replicators, but you could just make more replicators and they will replicate whatever you need. It's weird how, comfortable y'all get when things get made for you just, at a drop of a hat. Now, on the flip side of the spectrum, Section 31 demonstrates the other big cause for conflicts, that is to say, power. Whether we're talking about political power, military power, sociological power, it doesn't really matter. Section 31 traded in power. And that desire for power still exists and is sought out and is exploited at every available opportunity in the Star Trek universe. But that's a separate conversation that we should probably loop back to at some point in the future. For the meantime, we should probably loop back to the, basic status of a United Federation of Planets, citizen. And let's look at the most basic example of the quality of life of a Federation citizen. That is to say, their freedom from diseases. There are actually very few diseases that cannot be treated in the Federation anymore. And even fewer of those are fatal. And related to diseases slightly, no one who doesn't want to starves. There's no food shortage because replicators. And related to that, anyone can travel anywhere they want on a given planet in a literal flash because transporters are available. Now, I understand that transporters do have some sort of credit allowance attached to them, and that's probably due to the number of transport signals going across a planet at any given time, and you don't want conflicts or jamming or so on and so forth. But still, anyone can go anywhere on a planet anytime they want. You can literally just coast through life, and no one will either notice or care because yes, food is provided to you by way of replicators. Travel is provided to you by way of transporters. Medical care in the Federation might as well be magic to you. It is so far advanced from anything you have right now. You can simply exist and just be for the entirety of your life in the Federation, not make any dent on anything, and die. And you will basically not cost the Federation a goddamn cent. That's a miserable existence when you get right down to it, but still, it is entirely possible in the Federation, and certainly not in your current era. I mean, there is literally an entire planet dedicated to outright hedonism in the Star Trek universe, and it can not only exist, but be a popular destination simply because there is no resource limitation on it aside from gross square footage. And, well, let's be honest here, it's a planet. It's got a lot of square footage. You genuinely have absolutely no idea how easy life is for the average Federation of Planets citizen. For f***'s sake, Picard, that shiny-headed, self-absorbed, smarmy little shit that he is, literally brags about how easy their lives are to a person who is just doing her goddamn best to survive the aftermath of a global war. A war that does eventually lead to where Picard is, but still, how utterly disconnected do you have to be from reality to do what he did? Now, obviously, there are certainly exceptions to the standard just coasting through your life existence of an average Federation citizen. Notably dilithium miners who, naturally, perhaps, were replaced by EMHs because the Federation only cares about sapience if it's organic, and maybe not even then, but that's a whole different, separate conversation. But most people in the Federation just got to skate through their lives unless they wanted to make something more out of themselves by joining Starfleet or the Daystrom Institute or something like that. And then they might have had to apply themselves and maybe had to expend some effort, but still, it was all basically just handed to them. So, yeah, let me loop this around. Imagine for a second that here you are, a Starfleet captain, coming across, say, a planet that is pre-warp, because that's basically the line that the Prime Directive uses as to whether or not Starfleet can get involved with that planet or not. And that planet is just being absolutely ravaged by a disease. It's massively infectious and is killing 50% of the people it infects. It is lingering. It is heinously painful, and doubly so if you survive and recover, because you have to go through both sides of the experience. It takes infected people weeks, painful weeks, to die. It is abjectly horrible, and there is absolutely no way to cure it given local technologies or facilities. On the other hand, it's a 30-second fix for basic Federation medicine. This is not even noticeable Federation medicine. And somehow, for whatever reason, this planet is broadcasting an SOS call to these stars, not only on speed of light radio transmissions, but also somehow they discovered subspace communications before they actually discovered warp drive. So not only do you know about this absolute abattoir of a planet, but damned near everyone in the local galactic cluster does too. And you are not only prohibited from doing a goddamn thing to save those sophonts, you will actually be punished if you raise so much as a finger. Your command in Starfleet, the thing that you spent years working towards and competed against thousands of other people for, will be stripped away. Your subordinates will also likely be punished, and you will probably be sent to a penal colony. Why? Because you saved potentially billions of sapient lives by exposing them to post-warp technology before they discovered warp drive. That was your sin. Saving lives. And to be self-centered for just a moment, you can't even do that. You can't even expose pre-warp species to post-warp technology to save your own life, according to the Prime Directive. You can't even do that to save your ship and its entire crew. The Federation would literally let entire planets die off rather than expose them to post-warp technology if those planets hadn't quite broken that particular arbitrary line yet. And these f***ers are the f***ing good guys? Are you f***ing kidding me? Okay, fine. Deep breath. Woosah. As with Star Wars, the only good guys in Star Trek are just the rando normie people on the various planets just trying to get by under whatever authoritarian government has taken over their planet most recently. And maybe the Ferengi are a good guy too. Kind of vague on the definition of good guys in this particular case, but still, the Ferengi were at least honest. And they were doubly honest about when they were going to lie to you, which is a lot more than can be said for the Federation itself. Now, I am not actually trying to say that Starfleet and the Federation are necessarily the bad guys of the story, although I can certainly see a fairly easy argument that they could be. I'm just saying that for all their preening and all their posturing and all their self-righteous, holier-than-thou bullshit, the Federation were f***ing liars in the end. If they weren't such sanctimonious prats, their hanging out the rest of the galaxy to dry wouldn't be nearly so offensive. But as it is, yeah, they're pretty disgusting examples of sapient species. Because literally, when you get right down to it, Starfleet is explicitly an organization that will simply let planets die, just so they can say that they've got theirs and f*** everyone else. That is, That's a level of self-absorption that even I am impressed with. And let's take a moment and think about how self-absorbed I am. And I consider the Federation to be like orders of magnitude more impressive than I am in that regard. Holy fuck. All right. The basic upshot is that you can easily determine the moral maturity of a sapient individual simply by whether or not they believe Starfleet are the good guys or not. Now, I mean, just because they aren't the good guys doesn't mean they're the bad guys. There's some varying degrees of flexibility in there. But no, Starfleet are not the good guys. Federation of Planets is not the good guys. And the sooner you accept that, the much more interesting Star Trek gets. Have fun with that. And that's all from Sacred Cow Shipyards. Please be advised that any ship left on the dock for more than 24 hours will be compressed to a cube at the owner's expense. Have a nice day.